Hello everybody, Cone Dodger here, and welcome to the Vector Automotive Challenge Fan Build Competition Finals. These are the 7 cars that I chose out of the original 24 entries that I thought best represented the themed build we were trying to go for. When we started this competition, we set out to build cars that would be in the spirit of what the Vector Intrigue Mark II Rally was. And if you maybe have forgotten by now what this car was all about, this is a car that has a regular production version that would be easily marketable towards normal audiences that just want a good daily driver or something that is a little bit on the sporty side. So this here, the Intrigue Mark II Sport 2, is a normal everyday car that you would be able to afford quite easily, has good drivability, a little bit of comfort in there, and good safety. It does very well in markets such as family sport and pony. However, this kind of car is not necessarily what we were looking for in the competition. We were looking for this car taken to the fun side of the engineering firm and made into something that would be easily trackable and just good fun on the street. I was not looking for necessarily cars that were exactly this. I was not looking for cars that were exactly what I had already built. Now, due to the limitations of how many bodies and options we have in automation, a lot of the entries were pretty similar to this car, but I really enjoyed everybody's unique takes on just the overall theme, and that was taking a production car and without spending a whole lot of money or going too crazy exotic with it, just making something that would be a really fun, kind of surprisingly effective track car. In the end, I see now that my car, my personal build, has its faults. It is certainly not the best. If we put my car lumped in with everybody else's builds, and even if you just narrow it down to the cars that directly would be competitors for mine, which they all didn't necessarily fit into that category, there was far better cars than my own. Enough about my car, the car that set off this competition. Let's take a closer look at the finalists. So here we go. We have the Tom's AMW Magpie, Kenny's Atlas Corsair, and then we have the Ambush, which was by Hazeman Dog, and then we would have the Dominator by Cooper. Then we have the Griffin Rocket, that was by Zach. We have the NMC K-Type, that was by Aaron. And then we have the PW Sares by Packbat. And now I have limited these all, well, I've kind of grouped them all into a quote-unquote company so that we can compare them easily and directly. And this is the part that you guys kind of maybe want to pay attention to, and you can reference back to this, because in the end, it's not me that's going to choose the winner, it's you guys. The most drivable car here was the Griffin Rocket. The sportiest car here was the Griffin Rocket. So that's interesting to note. The Dominator also had the same amount of sportiness. The most comfortable car, surprising to me, was actually the Sares, which was, if you remember, the rear-engined kind of Corvair-ish car. So, interesting that that one actually ended up with the most comfort. Probably a 2-seater, I think it was, I don't remember. The most prestigious car here was the Atlas Corsair, and if you're not remembering what these looked like and what they had, don't worry, we will go in and give them a second look. Safety-wise, it would have been the Griffin Rocket, and it would appear as though the Griffin Rocket was the only car to better the Intrigue Rally in safety. Practicality, it would have been the 500R K-Type, so that one was the sedan entry, so it has its own unique, characteristic that separates it from the pack. The most efficient car here was Packbat Sares, followed by the Magpie. I remembered that car was extremely efficient. And then the lightest car here was the Rally, the AMG Magpie Rally. Now, one thing that is worth noting and worth your consideration when you're going into your voting booth is that the prices you see are a little bit on the vague side, because the price you see doesn't accurately take into account the amount of hours and production units and the level of factory that particular car takes to build. It does come into play, and you can see here that different cars use them in very different ways. Like the Sares uses a lot of production units, but uses very low-cost materials to kind of level out the price. And I think as you look down here, most of the cars are pretty much like that. The 500R was a little bit pricier than most, and it used a lot of kind of both ways. It used a lot of man hours and production units, or material costs, I mean. But overall, I wouldn't say any of these cars are out of consideration for the same buyer's market. And in case you're wondering, I mentioned multiple times that my car was actually the most expensive car, and that is true. However, that is only in, I believe, material costs. It is actually the lowest production units car in the field. So mine would have been the cheapest to build man hours wise, but it used much higher dollar materials to try and, have the same effect. We're not going to spend too much time on every car today. Obviously, I already did that, but I want to give a high point, a low point, and a why does it fit the theme for every car. The high point of Pacbat's Sares was definitely the unique layout and the fact that he made this rear/mid-engine setup work, and made it work in great fashion. It has good drivability, actually has great drivability, and very good sportiness, as well as the best comfort in the field. A very strong effort for a extremely difficult car to build in this era with limited technology and whatnot. So a few people tried this rear engine setup and definitely found their difficulties in it. But Pacbat, you definitely made it work. Low point, definitely, again, the styling. I'm not going to drag on about it because I felt I was maybe a little harsh on it the first time, but still definitely not my favorite looking car of the finalist group. Why does it belong? Because this car could very easily have a normal version of it. And I would say this car is probably one of the closest of the finalists to a normal car. This is something you could actually use every day, but then take to the track and have very good performance out of it. So not only have you done very well in trying to match, the build theme that we were going for, you actually kind of took it a step further and made something that was still easily daily drivable and was a car that would be fun to take to the track and is very obtainable at low cost. So that's my reasoning as to why this car fits into the theme. Tom's Magpie. The high point of this car, absolutely no doubt about it, is its performance. This car had one of the best drivability/sportiness kind of, pairings. So it's extremely drivable and sporty. It has a low cost. It is extremely obtainable. And it does have it has, I think, the lowest weight, one of the best economies. This is a car that is definitely something you can tell is based off your normal civilian car, but is taken almost as far as it can go to the trackside. So this is probably something lower production, something that they would not produce a whole lot of, but is just right on the ragged edge of being something that you could throw a helmet on. Heck, it's 1967. You could go and take to the track and just have an absolute ball with. So that is definitely a strong point. The low point on this one, again, I was not a huge fan of the looks of this car. The kind of modernish styling threw me off a little bit. The back, I think, was headed in the right direction. The front, maybe not. And the overall proportions of the body are a little awkward with a huge greenhouse and then almost kind of miniature front and rear. Why does it fit? I think I pretty much covered that. It is just an absolutely awesome track performer and is completely believable that a company could have taken, a normal car like this, or a normal version of this car, and taken it to that next level. The Atlas Corsair. This one was I think this was from our first episode. This is from Kenny, and was a very surprising entry, as when I looked at the body, I was a little underwhelmed, But then his strong suit on this one was, I think, the best sleeper because it has an absolutely monstrous engine underneath of it. If we look back there, it had a 278 horsepower cross-plane 4.2 liter V8. But it not only had that, it used it effectively. A lot of people, I think, tried for this muscle car and a pony car body and struggled with it. But Kenny really kind of used it and used it wisely and made a car that was not only high power, but something that was also really fun and, slam around the track. And has a little bit lower drivability than some of the smaller engine cars, but makes up for it with one of the best sportiness scores. This one really, really, to me, fits into the competition well because I see this car and my brain says, okay, this car has a 4-cylinder and is your basic coupe of daily, transportation to get me around town. And I think even as it's presented here, if you looked at this car, you would have no idea what lies underneath. And that's what he did. He took a car that looked, mundane and everyday and made not only a track animal out of it, but just an absolute, kind of supercar with a really good performance. 6.8 to 60 and a 14.5 mile. Those are extremely good muscle car numbers with a very small coupe. So that, I believe, is why this car fits in so well to the competition. The negatives, though, even with the way that it, has the sleeper looks, I don't think I would buy this car based off of its styling either way. And I also think it could have been maybe done a little bit even more to the extreme, made a little bit more expensive, and gotten a little bit more track and premium muscle car kind of attributes out of it to make it even more marketable. So, yeah, I would say the negatives there are probably just not quite far enough with the tuning on it. But I really liked the direction you were going with it, and yeah, I think, although I kind of did it in a weird order this time, definitely why that one belonged in the competition was due to its, raw sleeper nature and taking a normal car and just going extreme with it. Hazewind Dog's Ambush was another surprise to me. Initially, I didn't think I was going to like the looks of this car because I typically don't like the more squished back ends, but I was quickly turned around when I saw the front end. Although it is extremely intrigue-like, it does work with this body flow, and then the back started to grow on me as well. The high points of this car, though, are the fact that it is extremely good in drivability and sportiness, and also it used an inline 6 to pretty much get the same performance that I was getting. However, it does it in a much cheaper way. To me, this car's high point is that it is everything that the Intrigue Rally is, just in a little bit smaller, lighter, cheaper package. The downsides, I would say, definitely probably the back styling a little bit there, and just missing a little bit of uniqueness in its design. But fits in the competition perfectly because of exactly what I said. It's a mini Intrigue Rally. It's everything that car is, just a little bit less of it. And he made that work in a very good way, even though this is one of the bodies we couldn't see the design stats and everything like that on that. It worked well in the markets. It had a good price, even though it did need a markup on it to make it, realistic. It still works even with that. Maybe a little bit lacking in there, but it definitely still works. Next up, we have Cooper's Dominator CRI 225. One of the fan favorites, I believe, of the competition. An absolute looker. On the high points, although I have kind of two of them, the performance of this car was absolutely phenomenal. This thing not only dominated the markets, it did extremely well on the track and did very well in just, outright performance. It also is probably one of my favorite designs of the competition. I love the fact that you took this Datsun body and made something super unique out of it. I was very happy with the front end. The only downside to the styling was, again, these double pop-up headlights. Just a little bit awkward, I think. I can just imagine them being up, and that would look a little weird. But the use of the hood scoop in the front to kind of, make the front different with that real low nose. The way the taillight fixtures are, everything about the styling of this car is really, really good. The downside of it, it's probably a little bit more to the extreme side than the cars that we were kind of going for or initially building. And when I say that, I mean this car, even I think in its normal configuration, probably still more of a sports track car than any of the, regular coupes that we see in the Intrigue Spirit. This car probably would not have a highly practical, daily driver friendly kind of configuration. So it gets marked down a little bit for that, I think. This I believe is maybe the easier body to use to build a good sports coupe. However, you did so darn well with it that you brought yourself right back up into very good shape for me in the competition. So that is why I thought that it fits. It initially with me didn't sit very well because, again, you used the easier platform to build this kind of car with. However, you did just so darn well with it. A 37 sportiness and a 33 drivability, and absolutely great performance out of an inline 6 at a very good price. Yeah, this one was one of the easiest for me to pick. Zach's Griffin rocket, right up the same alley as Cooper's car. However, it did it with a different body. And this body, I think, fits the theme a little bit better. So I don't knock this one off for using the quote-unquote easier style of body. And this one, to me, plainly has the ability to have a normal kind of everyday driver setup. But the high points, this is, in the end, my favorite looking car of the competition. Which is weird because it's the simplest design. Nothing here is, highly intricate or anything like that. There was the use of the bump in the middle here and the right grills, the right fixtures on the right shaped body to make it work very well. And hell, even the color made this one better. You used all of the right stuff to make this car look really good. And the car is not just some bimbo, it has the performance underneath to kind of, warrant the looks. It is extremely good drivability and sportiness, has one of the highest practicalities to boot, and then has really good stats, altogether. And is extremely, extremely good in marketability. So, really, honestly, this is one of the overall best built cars, and probably one of the, in all of the ones I've seen, probably would be one of the best selling. The engine is, a V6, which isn't probably everybody's favorite, but I don't think that would hold too many buyers back on this thing. And yeah, that pretty much says it all. When my negative on this car is just the fact that it had a V6, and I don't think that is probably the sportiest option, that little tiny nugget of negativity to me is the only thing I can really find. And maybe the back is lacking in fixtures a little bit. Could have used, the license plate method and just a little bit more fixture work in the back to make it flow a little better. It just looks a little plain. But other than that, obvious fit in the competition. Definitely, definitely a car that has taken itself all the way to the edge of trackability and is still completely drivable. Well, that just leaves Corvette's or Aaron's NMC K-Type 500R, which is our only sedan in the finals. I think it was our only sedan in the whole competition. But this car, let's see, the strong points I think are absolutely fantastic performance, one of the best sportiness scores, and an overall, good balanced car in all of the detailed stats. And very good marketing in track premium with a sedan. And I just, really took me by surprise. When I saw the car, I was pretty surprised to see a sedan at all. However, you made the sedan work, and obviously this is a car that would have an everyday kind of driver configuration. So you took an everyday driver and you tracked it out, and that was what we were looking for, but it's still something that is drivable, affordable, and desirable. Negatives, I do like this styling, but the cabin of the car, I don't know, it just looks a little taxi cab to me, so maybe not my favorite body design, but very good job with the fixtures. And then, like I said, just a little bit narrow in its markets. Like, it doesn't have a whole lot of options in the markets versus some of the other cars, but it's actually pretty similarly marketed to the Intrigue. I did this out of order again, but fits in the competition because it's a normal car that's been tricked up with some cool parts. It's got a nice 4.3 liter overhead valve V8 that has, the desirability that everybody wants. It has the prestige that everybody wants, but then follows that up with good handling and easy driving, something you can actually use. So there you go. There are your finalists. And now it is time for you guys to get to work, and you're going to be responsible for picking who you think built the best thematically correct car. I'm not wanting you to pick who built the fastest, who built the most sellable. I want you to pick who built the best car that you think fits the theme. And if you're still having troubles kind of understanding what the theme was, really just think of it as a car that your company is producing that is selling well and lots of people want, but then you hand off to your best engineers to go off and spend a reasonable amount of money to make a car that is extremely good in track performance and is just a great spirited driving car. So, you're taking your normal, kind of average cars and turning them into something that really puts a smile on a driving enthusiast's face. So that is what we were looking for. Not necessarily something that was just an inline-6, coupe. What didn't have to be so specific. Everybody did a great job of staying on that theme. These are just the ones that I think were closest to that and were very good builds. So here's the link to the vote. Now, this competition is really just all about fun and having a cool experience. It was really awesome for me to get to check out all of your guys' builds and to see everybody get on board with the theme and stuff like that. So, try and keep things honest. I am going to be keeping an eye on this to make sure there's no funny business, because there is a little prize on the line. I am going to be designing a 1960s style magazine cover with my car and your car on it, as if they're going into a head-to-head comparison, and we'll be printing that and sending it to you. And I mean, professional printing, not like, HP inkjet printing. It should be a pretty nice looking thing, and I do hope that the winner will enjoy that, and good luck to everybody in the final voting. And I am going to close out this competition with a everybody together race around the airfield track, because some people wanted to see that, and so do I.